Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September the 8th, 2020. It's 9 a.m. Is there, Mercedes, you on for proof of posting?
This is Kelly. I'm here.
Okay, proof of posting.
All right. The agenda was posted on September 3rd, 2020 at 2:30 p.m.
Thank you. All right, at this time, let's pause briefly for a moment of silence, and then we'll have a pledge to the flags. Okay, if you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pledge to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Okay, we have no public comments today, so I will. We have a lot of annual contracts we're still cleaning up, and so Dustin, if you will pick up on items D under contracts and local agreements.
Yes, sir. Good morning. D1 is authorization of renewal of service agreement with the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children. This is our annual contract. We have $10,000 in the budget, which is the same as last year. Actually, they're requesting to receive $10,000, which is the same as last year. There's $4,247 in the Family Protection Fund. So there is some question on where the remaining $5,503 needs to come from. And I believe Francis has a recommendation for that. So Francis, would you like to chime in, please?
So yes, so we have always budgeted for that in the Family Protection Fund. There is not enough fund balance there to cover the entire $10,000. So the remainder you could take out of the Child Abuse Prevention Fund. That is a fund that we really haven't utilized for many things. So the fund balance is sufficient there. And we went ahead and put the remainder of that $10,000 in that fund for budget purposes, just in case, we knew this conversation was going to come up. So if you're good with that, we would split that $10,000 contract between Family Protection Fund and Child Abuse Prevention Fund.
Are there any questions for Francis on that? All right, Dustin, go ahead. Since there's no questions, go ahead and pick up the rest of them.
Okay. D2 is authorization of renewal of services agreement with the McLennan County Dispute Resolution Center. This is our annual contract with them as well. The payments under part of the contract will not exceed $54,000, which is the same as last year. And then in addition, we pay an amount for their Child Protective Services mediation program. That amount did increase from $36,500 to $63,000, but there is funding for both of these in the FY21 budget. D3 is authorization of agreement renewal with McLennan County Employee Federal Credit Union regarding their storage of records. This allows them to store their inactive records in the county archives building, and this runs through September 30th, 2021. Next is the authorization of spay neuter services contract with Animal Birth Control Clinic. This is under D4. This is our annual contract with them where the county makes a one-time payment of $19,000 for the spay neuter microchip chip services, which are provided at no cost for dogs and cats owned by residents in the unincorporated areas of the county. And then this will run through September 30th of 2021 as well. Under D5, this is the authorization of agreement for IT support services with CSCD. And I believe Lisa and Francis might have some updated info on this one as well.
Yes, so the way we left this discussion last court agenda, you know, we know we need to have this contract in place for IT support services between the county and the CSCD. The one part that the CSCD is requesting for you to review is that the monetary part, the $35,100. So what's been happening historically is that amount's been transferred into the general fund from the grant fund, and it's been an eligible grant expenditure. Chip Sigmund visited with you earlier in the summer and expressed his concern over the drop in probation fees and how that's really going to affect their department this next year. So he, you know, had stressed that, you know, maybe the general fund would have to pick up more expenses than they have had in the past. And we may not know more about that until the year gets going. But one thing that you could do to alleviate some of their grant funding for other things would be to waive the monetary amount that's associated with this contract.
Any questions about that? You know, there, as I mentioned before, there again, it's another unfunded mandate by the state where they're not taking care of their department and we have to pick it up locally. So.
And I know Judge Felton, you had asked about, you know, some of it is, you know, a little bit tied into COVID related issues. But this wouldn't fall into anything that would be eligible for a grant. And also, you know, it's kind of tied to drop in revenues. And so loss of revenues is also something that's not eligible at this time for the COVID grants that are available.
Even though it's caused by the COVID, I mean, if we wouldn't have had the pandemic, we wouldn't have had this, they wouldn't have had this problem.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right, Dustin, go ahead.
All right, D6 is our authorization of agreement for economic development services with the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce. We had a question last time to determine if the amount for the contract included the licensing fees for the economic impact analysis. So the annual contract amount is $175,000, which is a bump over where it was last year, plus half of the licensing fees, which typically run around $9,000, I believe, $9 to $10. So there's $185,000 currently in the budget for FY21, which covers the $175,000 contract and the county's half of those licensing fees. And so, Judge, with that, that's all the annual contracts on the agenda this morning.
Okay, I've got a question back on D3 on the Employees Federal Credit Union. Do we know how much space they're utilizing? Did we allow them to have X amount of cubic feet or square feet for storage, or is it limited?
Sir, I'm not clear on how much space they are consuming at this time. I don't think it's very much, but I can't put it into square footage for you, and I don't believe that is declared in the agreement. I do know that they did meet with Claire at your request. I'm waiting for a full report from her on all the departments that she's been in touch with to date. And we'll have that for my quarterly report. But there was some cleanup made to reduce the amount of storage that was in that area. So I think they're both pleased with that visit that they had.
Okay, well, my only point is that there again, we're spending a lot of money for our own storage, and then I don't know that they're paying us anything, correct?
They are not.
And Dustin, are they paying us anything for the space that they're in?
Oh, Judge, I need to go back and look. I don't think they are. I don't believe they are, but I'll check on that and confirm.
Well, I'm just making the point that everybody needs to kind of understand what the relationship is. I think there's a value for our employees for them to be there and all those things, but we just need to understand there's limits to things. Any questions anyone have on any of those annual contracts? Okay, is there a motion to approve D1 through D6?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Snow,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Feltham,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Okay, passed. Thank you. Under under E1, discussion or action regarding the burn ban order. You know, it's very wet. We had in my area, we had 8.5 inches of rain. Got a pretty good high chance today. You've got the numbers there in the report. And so I would make a recommendation that we not renew the burn ban. And I'll make that in form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? No other discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Snow,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Feltham,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Pass. Under E2's discussion or action regarding the deferral of payroll tax obligations. Francis?
All right, so I'm sure some of you have seen some information on this come through listservs and in the media, but the president had issued an executive memorandum a little while back that would defer the employees' portion of the Social Security tax for a period of time. So the Social Security tax is 6.2% on the employee, and then the employer also pays 6.2%. And then both of those, of course, are funneled to the federal government. So his memorandum was going to defer just the employees' portion for the months of September through December. Guidance from the Treasury did not actually become available until August 28th. And this deferral was supposed to have started September 1st if you chose to do so. And the guidance that came out just solidified the deferral, and then also made clear that the money would have to be collected and paid back for that period of time. So, and the employer has the option to choose or not to choose, or to choose to do so or not to do so. So if the employer did choose to do so, employees, their 6.2% of the Social Security tax would be deferred from September 1st through December 31st. And then that money would have to be recouped from them for the months of January through April. So yes, for the short term, it's going to, be beneficial to the employee, but as soon as January gets here, they're going to be hit double. They're going to have to be paying the deferred amount of the Social Security tax plus their current amount of Social Security tax. So there's been some guidance from TAC in that, that the court needs to make a decision on how they want to move forward with this, if it's something they want to choose to participate in. And then they've given some guidance on how to do so. One other point is that if an employer does this and then an employee actually terminates before all the money is collected, then the employer would be liable for that deferral amount. So my opinion on it is that that it's not something we would want to choose to do so. You may have some different opinions. All the counties that I've talked with in the last week, I haven't talked to anyone that's choosing to take the deferral option. Dustin, do you have any other information on it or opinions on it?
No, I mean, at this time, it is, as you said, it is a tax deferral, and I believe to get it to where, in the president's memo, he did speak toward tax forgiveness and directed the Secretary of Treasury to explore avenues, including new legislation that would eliminate that obligation. But at this time, it is just deferral, and it would take further action to forgive that tax.
Well, it was offered out there as additional stimulus to the economy to put dollars in the consumer's hands. And which I lean towards doing it because I think there's going to be a pretty good effort politically to forgive that debt. And if we don't do this, then they don't have debt to forgive and they miss out on it. And Congress has to do it. But there's quite a bit of discussion on it. And when there's discussion about forgiving student loan debt, well, then this is probably more justified to forgive than something like student loans, where they already got a benefit out of those grants. But Will, do you have an opinion on it?
More questions than anything. I mean, I'm all for, I want the this is the type of stimulus that we need, in my opinion. The payroll tax, cutting the payroll tax. If I don't think anything gets done though until November, honestly.
Right.
From discussions this morning and things I've read this morning, they're gonna have it sounds like there's a deal for a CR to fund the government for the rest of the year, and so that, I think that they're nothing happens till November.
Right. But this deferral is a presidential order, so it will happen. But the question, I agree with you with the question on forgiveness.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, it might be a flip of a coin whether or not it gets deferred or not.
Yeah.
But can the employees opt in and out of this?
So
I thought they could, but Dustin, I think, read something that you can't. It's all or none. Is that correct, Francis, or what do you?
Dustin, if you have some more information, go ahead. And the guidance is just so very vague. You really have to read into some of it to really try to figure out what it's doing. But I read, of course, the way I read it is that the employer has the option, but then there are some things that lend itself to yes, but then the employee also has the ability to opt in or out. And we would, TAC has recommended that you would definitely want something in writing from that employee that stated, hey, when we have to, because the guidance as it stands now says we will have to collect that back ratably from January 1st through April 30th. And so we'd have to have something signed from them, or would want something signed from them stating that if they terminated before that period, that remaining money that's due back would be pulled out of their last paycheck.
And what I had seen just through some HR guidance was that through the guidance from the Treasury, that it didn't appear that the individuals could opt out. So I think, like Francis said, it's bare bones guidance, and it's a little all over the place, and you kind of have to read into it. So
I just wonder. Go ahead, whoever's talking.
You go ahead first.
Okay. I think that employees would be pretty upset with us if they found out that we passed on this and then there was forgiveness of it that happened. And but I do also understand that some people want an even paycheck, everything's the same, nothing, no disruptions. And those, I understand that piece of it, but I'm just trying to weigh, first of all, the benefit of what the order was intended to do, which is to spur the economy. And And then second of all, the possible opportunity for forgiveness.
I agree with you that the employees would be grateful uh, for this initiative. What scares me about it is the vague and uncertainty of having to pay it back, because it says that interest and penalties, in addition to the taxes, would
Uh,
also accrue for something they didn't ask for that could potentially uh, down the line uh, not be advantageous for them. It just makes me a little anxious to approve it. Is the court prepared if the taxes are not forgiven to do something in that regard on behalf of the employees? I would feel uh, a little put upon if I didn't ask for something and then there was a penalty down the line. And I know we're saying that they would have to pay those taxes anyway, but if I already have a budget and I'm good with how my revenue flows, if you give me this windfall, then I'm grateful. But if it comes back and now all of a sudden I have to try to recoup 3 months worth of taxes or face penalties and fine and fees, I don't know how the employees would feel about that.
I don't think there's any penalties because we would actually deduct the payment. And so it wouldn't be late. It would be repaid in the time frame that the order lays out from January 1 to April. So the employee couldn't choose not to pay it. And there is a small chance that someone would leave and not, therefore they wouldn't be drawing a paycheck for us to be able to take that money back out. Our turnover rate's so low, I think the chance of that is pretty low.
And that's where, TAC had said, if a county was going to go forward with it, that they would recommend that you had something in writing from those employees that participated.
Sure.
That said, if you did terminate before that time period is over, that the entire amount would be deducted.
Yeah,
Those
that they would owe it.
would
Yeah,
come back.
so we would have control of that.
So if they left, then we would just recoup all 3 months worth of taxes out of their last check.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever was deferred.
But they got the money, they got the benefit on the front end of it. So they would have an obligation to just pay what they owed, not any more than that.
I'd
Well, so you're,
be appreciative if this was forgivable. If it would truly be a benefit to the employee. I see it being an economic stimulus in the immediate time. But with the cloud of if the person has to pay it back, really what I think is if it's not broke, don't fix it. If they're doing okay, leave them alone. I don't even see the relevance or the purpose of it. If you're gonna forgive their taxes, forgive their taxes.
Defer it, be deferral.
Yeah, I'm saying as versus to deferring. If you're gonna give people this windfall, and I don't say you, meaning us
Right.
specifically, but if a person is going to be forgiven and given this amount of money to help stimulate the economy, that's one thing. But then if I have to come back in between January and April and I've got to pay it back, then what did it benefit me? It may have benefited the economy, but it didn't do anything for me. And I don't even understand the shell game of the order. If it's forgivable, I wouldn't have a problem. A lot of families are hurting. And when you put money into the hands of the consumer, it does help the economy. But if we're looking at something, we're just kicking the can and we're going to make these people pay it back in January, I really don't see the relevance of it.
I think the idea was that, go ahead, Commissioner Jones, go ahead.
I just don't know enough right now. So would the penalties and interest be waived? Is that correct? on the deferral?
The way I understand it, I don't know. Dustin, can you find anything on there that talks about? I don't think there's penalties and interests that are levied against it.
Well, under the
Don't-
clause, payment of deferred applicable taxes, it says an affected taxpayer must withhold and pay the total applicable taxes that the affected taxpayer deferred under this notice, with wages and compensation paid between January 1 and April 30th, or interest, penalties, and additions to tax will begin to accrue on May 1st.
If
But
they don't pay it.
That will.
They don't pay it.
Right.
Yeah.
You answered that,
But-
how we will pay it
But
back.
we
So-
control
Well, I mean, I
that.
think, I think you could defer them now, and then if it doesn't, if the, if they don't get waived, if it doesn't get waived in November, then you could, you just put in a little more, every week. But,
Well, the way it reads, because it's the federal social security tax, we would have to take out what, was specific by the federal government. So whatever we did defer for this period of time, we would not be able to, start collecting that until January 1st. One other point, we keep talking about will it be forgiven or not? And there's just not a lot of guidance out there right now. But our thought is, if they do, let's say you choose not to do, or an employer chooses not to do the deferral, and then they come back and they forgive them, actually forgive the taxes later on. For the ones that did not choose to defer, would there be some sort of, reconciliation on your income tax at year end to account for those taxes that you overpaid for that period of time? And there, again, no guidance there yet on that. But that's one thought we have, that if they did forgive it, actually forgive it completely, would employees still be able to take advantage of that, even though they may not have deferred the taxes?
But is that not a moot point, since it has to be a blanket approach to this? I was hearing that we couldn't individually opt in or opt out. It has to be a blanket approach.
I think the hard part is that there's guidance kind of all over the place on that. What some of the HR pages I had read said it's employer based, but then the guidance from TAC that Francis spoke to, I'll read you kind of the section that Jim Allison had sent out. He had kind of taken some TML, the Texas Municipal League guidance, and tweaked it for counties. And here's what it states. It says, what should a county consider before it temporarily stops withholding taxes? A county that is contemplating the tax deferral may want to consider the following. 1, give an employee the option to defer or not defer the tax. 2, inform employees that the deferred taxes will have to be paid back between January 1, 2021 and April 30, 2021. 3, enter into an agreement with the employee that clearly provides how the county will recoup the deferred taxes between January 1 and April 30th, including whether the employee will be subject to double withholding. And 4, enter into an agreement with the employee that spells out how the county will reimburse the county for deferred taxes should the employee no longer be employed by the county at the time the deferred taxes are due, or in the event the employee is not making enough money to pay back the tax. So it's really, we've seen it both ways.
Does the action of the court, does that make it retroactive back to September 1? In other words, I guess what my point is what Commissioner Jones is saying is that there's so much we don't know, and I don't know if we know more in a week, but if we, I think we would know more. I don't know how useful it'd be, but we would be able to discuss this more at the next meeting, and then maybe make a better, we have a better basis for making whatever decision we decide to make. So I guess the question is it retroactive to September 1? No matter when we passed it.
Francis, how would that impact the withholding with, payroll coming up?
So of course, we're in the middle this morning of, preparing a payroll that will go out on Friday. So that includes September 1st, of course, and going forward. So, if we waited a week, got some more, see what other guidance is out there and think on it a little bit more, we could also think and see if there's any guidance on making it retroactive. I mean, if it is, of course, we'd have to go back and make those adjustments and apply those on the next check. But if not, and we just need to make it effective the date that you approve it, I mean, of course, that's an option too. But I don't, nothing really lends itself to the retroactive side of things. Guidance just came out so late. There was absolutely no way to get it in place by September 1st. But maybe we can find some more information on that.
Yeah, probably, we should call on, since it's a congressional thing to forgive, we would call on our representative and find out if their office has any information on it. They should be pretty in tune with what's going on.
I think a lot's going to have to do with the outcome on November the 3rd. So.
Yeah. Unless there's a bunch of campaign promises to forgive.
Yeah, well.
But you're
It
right.
just sounds like, I mean, I would love to, I think I would like another week to think about it.
Okay.
If we can.
All right.
And on the discussion of making it retroactive, if you made a decision today or whether you make a decision next Tuesday, we would still be in this current pay period. So that wouldn't affect, of course, the pay period it's already passed is over and done with, but this current one, it wouldn't affect this current pay period. So
Okay.
today or Tuesday, we could still make that work.
Okay. Well, then I think it'd be appropriate for a motion to defer.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. Call for a vote.
Commissioner Snell,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Okay, pass. Dustin, is there anything else to come before the court?
Judge, I think we need to go back to D5 and just clarify if we are going to waive those fees or not. The way the agreement, it's in the packet with that section highlighted. So just to clear up any confusion, that's on the CSCD agreement.
So it's $35,000, is that correct?
So far.
35,100.
Anyone have any thoughts?
I guess it's difficult for me to really determine how I feel about it. It's like we are accepting the harm that they may receive. So I don't know how we address harm when the harm hasn't been done. If that makes sense.
So Chip is just essentially anticipating that he will not have funds for this. Is that correct?
I
Or does he
assume.
al- Or does
I
he
mean-
already know that he won't have funds for it?
Well, as long as the pandemic's going on and they're not having these, they've waived all these fees and everything that are mandated or statute by the state, then he's gonna have a cash flow problem. So
Okay.
it just burns me that the state can come in
Oh, yeah.
and tell us
Same
that
here.
we've got caps and all that business, and then,
Yeah, and then make us pay more. I
well, and
agree
we've
with
got, we got people out there at the jail that the state should have taken and we're feeding and caring for them.
Mhm.
And then it come to find out because of the state's rules, we've got only a small percentage of that we can get back under the CARES Act because the state manipulated the order to fit
Right,
them. So what we don't spend goes to the state.
Yep.
It's just all a stinky mess to me.
Well, when you explain it that way, I mean, the first part of your explanation,
Not the stinky mess part.
when you explain it that way, if he is experiencing a cash flow deficit because of the inability for people to come in and do those protocols where they pay fees and fines,
Right.
then I guess we really have no choice because it is a department that we need to undergird and keep operating as normal as they can.
So your recommendation would be to fund them.
Yes, to absorb that amount of money for this fiscal year, based on his, in the nature of his request.
Yeah. That sounds pretty close to a motion.
It's not CARES eligible with, that's what we,
That's what we've seen so far. It just stuns me that it wouldn't be when it's really caused by the
it's ridiculous.
pandemic. Yeah, ridiculous.
So that's
I'll second Commissioner Miller's motion.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? No discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Snell,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton,
No,
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
pass. Okay, Dustin, anything else?
No, sir, that will do it.
All right, well, I appreciate everybody meeting today on an off-schedule meeting, and have a good week. We are now adjourned.